Hey neighbors, Kevin here with the etrailer, and today we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt T-connector custom fit wire harness here on our 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander. And now if you do have this SUV, you're probably wanting to take your kids out on a camping trip and need to tow a trailer. Two essential components is going to be your trailer hitch and then also that wiring so that you can transfer your traffic signals from the vehicle back to that trailer so everybody on the road knows exactly what your intentions are. Now with these kits, there are a few different options as far as the installation goes. You could go with a universal kit, which will require splicing into the wiring for your taillights, which can be a little bit daunting if this isn't something that you regularly do. If that is the case, please feel free to use our dealer locator to look up a shop within your zip code to help get this installed. Now with ours today, this is a T-connector style, so it is a little bit easier. You just pop your taillights out and then you can use the connectors to plug right in. Makes the process a whole lot more simple. So if we trace those wires back to where they all kind of come in together, there's going to be a little black box, and that's your converter. What that does is it transfers your signals, so if the trailer is a 2-wire or a 3-wire system, it's still going to be able to properly send those light functions back so that we're displaying properly on our trailer's taillights. If we follow that up, we are also going to have to run a power wire up to the battery, and that is because we are no longer pulling power from the taillights like they used to do back in the day, because what happens is eventually you'll pull maybe too much of a load from that trailer, and then you blow out the fuse, and then now you no longer have taillights on your vehicle. As far as the installation goes, there are a few things that are going to be included. You'll have a self-tapping screw to help mount the ground wire. You'll have a couple of butt connectors, some zip ties, but I do highly recommend picking up some extra zip ties. Maybe go with some longer ones like 10 or 12 inch. Those kind of typically make your life a little bit easier trying to get it in there. And then also you are going to want to pick up heat shrink butt connectors, which we also offer here at etrailer. They give you regular ones, but those aren't going to help protect the wiring, because right now the wiring is pretty exposed. You could easily get some mud, water, snow, any kind of slush thrown up on there from the wheel. So it's best to protect that. And then you're also going to need another one for up in the engine bay, because that is also open to the elements. Now that we've gone over a few of the details of our wiring kit, why don't we show you how we got it installed. Since our wire harness is going to come with factory connectors to plug right into our taillight, we're going to need to start by removing our driver's side taillight trim panel, and that's this guy right here behind our taillight. We'll take a little trim panel tool, and what I found is the clips are kind of right in this area and then right here. So you'll most likely be fine kind of prying up from this way for popping that out. And then once we have that out, there's going to be 2 Phillips head screws we're going to need to remove. With those 2 out, we're going to pull our taillight straight back, and that's going to pop it out of its mount. I'm going to be careful with this just because this taillight kind of goes pretty far up, so we want to make sure we're not pinching it as we pull back. There we go. And here's the little part that was holding this up. Right here, this presses into this port, and that's what holds it in place. And right along that, we're going to have a little gasket. We're going to pull on this, pop that out, and that's going to reveal our connector for our taillight. We can go ahead and just pop that out. We'll press down on this white tab right here, and we'll pull the whole connector off and kind of set that. And we can set our taillight to the side. Next, I'm going to just throw on a piece of painter's tape to kind of help hold on to our harness. We don't want that slipping back in through that grommet while we run our fish tape up through the bottom so that we can push all of our wiring up and connect to it. So you can stick your fish tape, or in my case, I'm just using some leftover airline tubing right down through here. There is a panel that's kind of sitting here, but you can reach in from further up and kind of grab it from the other side. So I'm going to leave a little bit hanging out over here, and I'm going to get under there and see if I can find that. And now that we have the other end, we can attach our wiring to it. Just going to tape up our harness just a bit, make it easier to pass through. And for the driver's side, we're going to be using that red, yellow, and brown, and white For the passenger side, we're going to have just a green and white. That taped on, we can pull it up until we have it up by our taillight. With the wiring up in place, we can connect to our factory wiring. And then we can kind of push that back up in there just a bit so we have a little bit more space for the wiring for our taillight. Now we can reattach our taillight. And this is going to be the trickier part. You got all this wiring here that used to not be here, so you will have to kind of play around with it, try and find exactly how it's going to fit perfect, and just kind of pop it back into place. Then we can reinsert those two screws that we removed and our trim plate. So we're just going to do the same exact thing over on our passenger side, although we will have a little bit less wiring to kind of push up through the bottom here. After we get our taillight out, I'm going to lift the vehicle, and then we can fish that green wire through the bumper. And I'll show you exactly how we get to that. Running over our passenger side wire, as I look up into the fascia here, we have a pinch weld from the back side of the frame where that beam kind of cuts across, and there is a hole in each corner and then also right in the center. So that's going to give us a nice spot to zip tie our wiring to, just to keep it up away from the exhaust and any other kind of moving parts that could potentially grab onto our wire and yank it down. So I have two zip ties in place. I've left them a little loose just so that we can still play with this. We might need a little bit more wire than what we have. So until we fully know, it's better just to leave it a little bit loose. But we can go pull our vehicle back down and then pull up our airline tubing, get our wiring up there. And we've got plenty of wiring. So what we're going to do with all that excess once we get this connected is just zip tie it down at the bottom and snug it all up. That way we don't have anything that could potentially catch. Push that in. Grab our taillight. Connect to our taillight wiring. And we can pop our taillight back in. Now that we're connected to both of our taillights, the next step is going to be running a power wire up to our battery. So it's a good idea, come up, pop your hood, kind of get an idea of which way you need to route it. With ours being on the driver's side, I am going to just stick a airline tube down behind it because we do have a little bit of an opening to where I can see. Now that doesn't mean that that's going to be the perfect spot for us. We're really going to have to kind of get under the vehicle to check. But just to make things easier, I am going to throw this down there. And if it ends up being good, then we don't have to lift and lower the car as much. The kit's going to include some double-sided tape. I'm going to use that right now and have that hold on to the frame right here. Wipe that off a little bit. Peel back our backing on here. Let's stick that on. Now I'm also going to use a mounting screw that'll also be included in your kit, and I'm going to put our ground right through the same spot since we are going right into metal. That way we can knock two birds out with one stone. With that secured in place, now we can grab our power wire, and we're going to splice on a bit more. I'm going to give you a roll of it that we're going to use, and they give you a regular butt connector, but we're going to use a heat shrink butt connector. There's no point in using that back here because you're just going to allow that wire connection to collect water in it, and then it's just going to rust and corrode away. So here we have our bundle. I'm crimping on a heat shrink. Give it a good pull, make sure it's not loose. Now we can come up to that power wire that we had and do the same thing. Pop that in place and crimp it down. And we'll give that a tug too. Now we can heat this up with our heat gun and get that to shrink. Now the process is going to be just running this wire all the way up to that battery, avoiding anything that's going to generate heat or anything that's going to be moving, so that way our wire doesn't get pinched by anything. So for our 4-pole wire, I just ran that along like we did with that passenger side green wire that was running up to our tail light, and then we're using the dust cap to hold it onto our hitch. You can buy a 4-pole bracket, but typically with just a 4-pole, I'm pretty good with just that dust cover. For the other wiring, this is a little bit trickier. There isn't really a great area on the driver's side to go through, but what I did was I ran it up over the framing right here, and I zip tied it onto the frame. I have it come up over this cross member, and then it sneaks across even more to past this one, and you can kind of see it right here coming out. Now once we got up to this heat shield, I tried fighting my way around it, but the gas tank is flush with the body. So I did have to pop out these 2 tabs right here. That gave me enough wiggle room. I could get my wire in behind the heat shield, and then it's coming out right here. Now when you get to this, I would just pop out each of these little push pins as you go. Makes your job so much easier. It's not worth sitting there trying to fish it through and fight it when you can just pop that out, pull it all the way down, and then you can come out down here. And this is also going to be another spot where there's a bunch of push pins that you'll want to kind of pop out so you can get your hand up in there and force that wire through. Now I do have it behind the heat shield up at this point, so you can't really see it, but once we get past it, it is just going straight up with that airline tube that we pushed down from the engine compartment. Now that we've traced our wiring up to our battery, I've just kind of bundled up the excess. We're not really going to need it all, but it's best to hang on to that. If you ever do end up having an issue and you need to cut some wire off, then you got a little bit of extra. That way you're not adding on another spot. Now, I've also kind of looked at how our cover goes for our battery terminal here. Looks like the only spot where it's really going to be good is right here at the front, because there's an opening in the plastic. Let's pop that off. So you can see right here, this kind of meshes right up with the battery, so there's not really going to be any room, and I don't want to drill through the cover. So with this little slot right here, we'll have plenty of room to snake our cable up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this short on one side to kind of match up. We don't need all that extra wire on the fuse holder. And we'll run our other one up. That way it kind of sits nice, and this can kind of sit right here on the side and be out of the way. Butt connector again, since this area is going to be susceptible to the elements. In your kit, they're going to give you a ring terminal as well. That's what we're going to use right here. And I always try to kind of splice it on so that it's going to sit nice. If you look at it from the side, you can see one side has a flat side. The other side's going to be a little bit more open. We want to make sure that we have that flat side so it sits nice and tight up against our terminal here. Glove in there. Now with a 10mm socket, we'll disconnect this nut right here. We'll slip on our ring terminal, and we'll tighten it back down. So our ring terminal plastic right here is fighting us, so I'm just going to snip out just a small portion of our cover right here to allow access. Next we can put in our fuse, which was included with our kit. We'll push that down and then pop over the cover. we can just tuck our wiring in, keep it up out of the way. If you want to, I think I might run one more zip tie over this battery mount right here. Now, anytime you cut that off to replace the battery, you are going to have to just replace that zip tie. Now we're just going to hook up a little tester so that we can make sure that each of our light functions are working properly. So I'll pop this on and go hop in the driver's seat. We'll start out checking our headlights. Next we can hit our brake, make sure that that's functioning. Left turn, and then our right turn. With all of our light functions properly showing up on our tester, that'll do it for today's installation of the Curt T-connector custom fit wire harness here on our 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander. If this video wasn't helpful enough, or you still have some questions, maybe you need a 7-pole instead of a 4-pole, please feel free to reach out to us via the Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.